Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised.
All right, how are we? After our 7 minutes.
Oh, fabulous, thank you. How are you guys?
So good. Yeah.
Have you had a little something to eat or something to drink?
Still.
Are you still on your... Are you still eating?
They're still eating their snacks. I had a couple of sweet potato chips. But Tony hadn't eaten dinner, so he seems to be waiting for me, even though I said we're doing back-to-backs and probably wouldn't be finished till later. But that's okay. I've fasted for the last 24 hours. I can fast for another hour and a half.
Is that right?
And still smile.
Did you not eat at all yesterday?
Mm-hmm. No, I eat at night and then I don't eat during the day at all. So it's almost a 24-hour fast by the time I get there. Yep.
Wow, you are a machine.
Yeah. So
I would stab someone.
who are we? I'm Schmitty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarkey. And together we are...
Trial
by Wine.
And what are we drinking?
Oh, for sound effects, I'm going to surprise you all with a massive...
Ooh. Not a
Coke Zero.
buddy. Yeah, little Coke Zero. Nice one.
What about you, Schmitty?
Clarkey and Woo, are you still working on the non-alcoholic rosé or are you moving on to something sturdier?
So, I'll tell you what we're going to move on to. But first up, I would like to just review... I'll give you a different perspective on the non-alcoholic rosé. So when I reviewed it from the point of view of someone who was about to drink wine. And it probably isn't what I would want from a wine.
Yep.
But after having drunk half a bottle each of it, in terms of if you actually don't want to drink alcohol, often your options are super sweet drinks or just flavourless drinks.
Or water, yeah.
It's actually quite a good alternative to sit there and just sip at that because you're not going to get that sugar addiction and scull it or whatever. You're just going to have sips of it. So I actually think it's quite a good drink, to be honest, albeit not what I would use to substitute wine, but use it to substitute not
soft
drinking
drink.
or drinking with your friends kind of thing. So if you don't want to drink soft drink,
there you
some of this
go.
shit.
So
It's
you
good.
can sponsor us non-alcoholic wine producers because we found a way to rationalise it.
What about you, Schmitty? What are you on?
Clarkey's face suggests that he's not really that keen. I'm halfway through my one allocated mango chats, but I did pour myself at 150 calories a glass of Saint-Hilaire sparkling, I think it's a Blanc de Blanc from France, and that's my allocation after I finished.
Oh, well done,
the
darling.
chutney.
Having not eaten anything, you'll be shit-faced. You're a cheap date tonight. Here we go.
Oh, I can't wait.
This is
for
going to be
this.
fun. What's funny, because
me.
I was going to get myself a drink as well. I've got these lovely new glasses that I bought because we're our friends who love gin and tonics, but they're like on a stem and a big fat bowl, and I can fill it with lots of ice and lime and soda. But to give the story away, I'm going to be the one who's doing the story. I would have been clinking too much and it would have driven you all crazy.
Okay.
So I will save it for another time. But that's my latest thing, especially what's really hot over here. I'm loving that. Big glass.
You're a good egg.
But I don't
Any
have gin. I
alcohol
have
in it as well?
vodka and vodka lime soda I'm having in them. They're really yummy.
Yeah, nice.
I think.
Disappointed that you think clinking is an issue.
What, when I make all these other noises that I make?
Clarkey and I snort all the way through it. We sip and slurp.
Yeah.
Well, let's see how I go.
You
Maybe.
on it.
Okay, well, maybe we can get to a
I
point.
haven't seen you on a
Clink
drink for
away.
ages.
No, I
Yeah.
haven't had a drink for a while. Not on here.
Get on it.
Get on it.
Get on it. We can pause.
Oh,
We can
ouch.
What
There's
now?
nothing like peer pressure. Hey?
Look,
Get
get it
out.
started. We'll need a wee break because you'll have your champagne. I'll go straight through you, and then I will go and get on it.
All right.
You're going to be like dancing around, missus, after your little some
I'm
bowls
already a
go
bit
straight
hot
in
from the
front.
half chutney. Yeah. Okay. What have you got for us?
Well, I do have a story, as I've alluded to, and how I came about looking into this crime was a family friend of ours must have watched a documentary sometime over Christmas, and
Thank God. I thought you were going to say,
No.
it was a family friend
No,
of
no,
ours
no.
committed it.
and he he and I have quite similar interests in crime and music, and generally if I like something, I'll say to him, you should have a look at this, and vice versa. He did tell me, but there was so much stuff going on at the time I didn't get a chance to have a look. So this might have been a month or so ago. And the other night I'm looking at another crime that's for Cruise Month, which we might have to extend. And I was just thinking about something in the back of my head. I thought, what did he tell me? So I went and had a look, and that's how I've come into contact with this particular story. And what I've done is I've started with watching the documentary and worked back from there. So it was a crime that I was somewhat familiar with. I think you'll both know about it as well. I think a lot of people know about it. But where it fell down for me was I've realised that the time this crime happened, we were moving from Europe to Australia. And in the months that sort of where it played out, I remember it being background noise in the press, but I didn't really ever engage with the story. So going in, I knew it involved a submarine and a Dane and a journalist. But beyond that, I really didn't know any of the details. And
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Was the
Dane great?
The Dane was not great, trust me. And I know some great Danes.
Waka, 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 waka.
So my sources for today's story are the BBC, Old Mate, Wikipedia, The Guardian, the Sydney Morning Herald, Wired, and Netflix, and a documentary that really is where I started, and it did really sort of get me very interested, and it was called Into the Deep, and the subhead is The Submarine Murder Case. So just in case you're wondering what might happen, I think what I might do is I might start at the end and then go back.
So does someone murder the submarine, or does the submarine murder someone?
Yeah, someone does murder the submarine, actually. It does actually happen.
Right.
Yeah. So this
and by murder a submarine, do we mean sink?
Yes, you do. Anyway, it's called, there's a word for it. I've written it down.
Is there really a word for sinking a submarine?
And you'll know it.
Which isn't just sinking it.
Scuttled.
Oh,
yes. Because I only read it a day.
You can scuttle a boat, though.
Oh, yes.
A ship. Any vessel.
Yep. Yeah. And you know how there's, this is so embarrassing. I cannot believe I'm saying this. But you know how there's all those memes that say I was today years old when I found out?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I had never given any thought. You know how sometimes it's just that you've never thought about it. It's not like I thought about it and thought that can't be true. It just never crossed my mind. I've never thought of this.
Yeah.
So I do know that there is a Rolex Submariner watch, so I'd never realised, because I'd never thought about it, that a Submariner is a submarine driver or, like a racing car driver or a pilot or whatever else, a Submariner. I just thought it was the name of a watch that I'd never really given much thought to. I'm so embarrassed. But anyway, there you go.
Do you want me to edit that out?
Yeah, maybe. Submariner. Maybe. How embarrassing is that? Anyway, I looked at it and I went, oh, yeah, of course. But I just never thought about it.
Schmitty, your next question should be, how much are you willing to pay?
No, it's all right. I don't think people give it a great deal of thought. But yes, Submariner being under the sea.
Yes, of course. I understand that. But I'd never... Why? But do you know what? Can I really we're really being honest?
Yeah, go on.
When I was Submariner, I just was like thinking it was diving. I wasn't thinking submarine.
Yeah.
That's the only connection I made. Because I wouldn't imagine many people...
500 leagues under the sea.
It's not like when, we've gone to the Rolex shop and said, because the Submariner I know is a very popular brand. It's not because people are wanting to take it down in a submarine. It's because I figured in my mind, I guess it's helpful for people if they dive or whatever else. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there you go. I'd never made the leap from diving to being in a submarine, which I think is fairly practical.
Pressures as well.
When you guys were last at the Rolex shop, by the way, which because it's not like when we went to the Rolex store. I'm like, I don't go to the Rolex store. That Rolex is like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
No,
like, who goes to the Rolex shop?
I was going to say, is it worse to say that you didn't even know that Rolex had a brand called Submariner?
I don't know how much of a bigger asshole I can sound at this time, so I'll just leave it at that. And here I was worried that this might not be a terribly humorous story. We're off to a good start. I'm sorry.
I never connected the Rolex name with real life.
Yes, and I'm just going to point out that on JomaShop.com, there is one for $230,800.
What, a Submariner?
A Submariner diamond, silver tone.
There you go. You don't have to have all the bejeweled bits and pieces.
No, you're right. The non-bejeweled ones are a very cheap 58,000. I'm looking at the price point now.
Fair enough.
Anyway,
it's like you to prove a point, Schmitty.
I don't wear a watch anyway, so it's all moot. It's exactly like me to prove a point, and you too. Sorry, Swanny.
No, that's okay.
Please continue.
Right, so 3 people that I'd like to introduce you to from the outset are a Danish inventor who was also considered to be a bit of an anti-establishment hero in Denmark, and his name is Peter Madsen. Then another person I'd like to talk about is an Aussie filmmaker, and her name is Emma Sullivan. And then finally, a Swedish journalist, and her name is Kim Wall. And it's sort of their take and their story that I will be sharing with you today. So I'm going to start with Peter Madsen. And Peter was...
Mad Dog Madsen.
Oh, he was a mad one, that's for sure. So he was born in 1971, so give us a bit of context in terms of, round about nearly my age.
Our age.
Yeah, same kind of thing.
Somewhere.
And he was born in Copenhagen in Denmark, and he had...
Copenhagen.
He was the only child of a couple who'd got together who had already had children, and wasn't a particularly good relationship, and it didn't last very long. So when his mother and his father split, the 3 children from his mother's previous marriage went and lived with her, and he lived with his father, who was quite an older man. So from the age of about 6, he was growing up with this older man who had interests, and the son sort of took on some of his father's interests in terms of engineering and rockets, and he was a bit of an ideas guy, a bit of an inventor. So while attending primary and secondary school in Denmark, Madsen developed an interest in rocket fuel with the help of chemistry and physics teacher Johan Fischer. He developed his first large rocket there, and he launched it in 1986.
Did you say it while in high school?
Yeah. It was 1 metre tall.
What did they teach at his high school?
Rocket science.
Rocket science. Yeah.
Rocket fuel at high school.
Yeah, but only if you did the
Bunsen burners.
I was going to say only if you did the rocket science stream, right? Because there was the brain surgery stream going on over in the other lab.
Yeah.
Didn't you have that at your high school?
Also not.
No, not at ours.
No.
So
we had the funny farm, which was the part of the classroom where all the naughty people had to sit. And then
I'm glad you said naughty then. I thought you were going to say something else.
What did you think?
Window lickers.
Oh, God. Yeah, no. No.
Anyway, sorry, go on. Maybe not.
Oh, no.
You mean kids from the blue bus?
But this is the thing. Yeah. Every area, every place where people grow up, and because it's, we'd never say it now, but in Wollongong there was a place called Greenacres. So Greenacres was the place if you had a mental delay, and there was a sheltered workshop there. So it was like if someone was giving you shit, you go to Greenacres or whatever else. But at the same time, there was that show on TV, Greenacres is the place to be. Yeah. So the bright folk of Wollongong combine the two, and if someone was really hating shit on you, they'd be singing that song, but meaning that you were a window licker.
I know. I thought you were going to say that was their advertising slogan.
No, it was just kids being assholes in playgrounds.
Yeah,
some things never change.
The thing about the term window licker and blue bus is that I always thought that they were kind of localised to...
I presume blue bus is localised. I never heard such a thing.
No, yeah. I've heard it in the UK as well. Certainly window lickers
Why was the bus blue? Window lickers, I'd get.
The funny thing was, when I went to high school, right, we were on Ryan's buses. They were always blue. So I don't know why we pick on blue buses, because most buses are blue around this area. I digress.
Do you want to tell her, Swanny, or should I?
You're so funny.
Funny you should say that.
Moving right along.
So his father died when he was just 18 years old, and at that point he kind of moved out and was obviously living on his own. And he continued to experiment and consult engineers, and his interests were very much in engineering and aeroscience, and he joined the Dansk Amateur Racket Club, DARK, which was the rocket club in Copenhagen. The other members became a little bit more disillusioned with him because he was just a bit too crazy, and they used to joke that saying his name would start the fire sprinkler system, meaning that he was always pushing the boundaries. We were talking about before he was interested in rocket fuel. His ideas were bigger, grander, more crazy, more dangerous than the rest of them were quite prepared to go along with.
Good old Madsen.
Correct. Yep. So he never finished his formal education, and he took courses in welding and engineering to learn things. but he was never able to sort of actually finish a course. Like, so he would start something, get a bit of knowledge, but had a lot of enthusiasm and, you know, a quite charismatic character. So I don't think that it was ever something that particularly held him back. But at times it would cause conflict with other people. So
I think he had a bit of ADHD because he
dog.
Focused till he was interested and then left it.
But how did he pay for his lifestyle? How did he pay for this inventing or whatever else? Well, he was getting financial support from other people who were either organisations or enterprises who were giving money or funding or whatever else, because he was full of ideas, brimming with enthusiasm. And I imagine that if you saw him, you'd think this guy could do something pretty amazing. So he was already starting to get a bit of a following, even in those sort of early days.
Yeah.
He was married. His wife worked in the film industry, I think, from memory. And they lived and built a workshop in I've seen this place, and the best way I could describe it is an industrial area that had been sort of decommissioned. So I think it was historically like a shipbuilding area on the outskirts of Copenhagen. And then it had been sort of repurposed by inventors and artists and people who were using sort of derelict workshops and factories, and not factories, more workshop kind of things, where there was infrastructure.
Warehouse type things.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So you could imagine, to be honest, so much of this story is exactly what if I was the locations director for a Nordic noir film. Yeah. It was perfect setting, like, you know, sort of bit desolate, bit of a mess, overgrown at points, you know, the crappy wrought iron
windows,
the wrought iron fences, you know, all that, not wrought iron, corrugated, all that kind of stuff. Really very run down, puddles everywhere, grey. But that's Airport where West, a lot of them were starting to live and work. And I think there was a little bit of a community there whereby he became somewhat of a figure to the people there. And I don't quite know how he ended up with nationwide notoriety. I know why it comes a little bit later, but even in these early days, I can't get a feel for if he was already somewhat famous, infamous, well-known. But quite often I see him referred to as an entrepreneur, but I don't think he was an entrepreneur in the sense that he had money and backing a la Mr. Branson. It was more a guy with big ideas and a quite a large profile for someone who didn't have any money or anything and didn't have any formal education.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't have any money. They just talk other people into giving it to them.
Correct. He was very much that person.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah. So in 2008, Madsen co-founded Copenhagen Suborbitals with a Danish architect called Christian von Benston. And I've also read that guy had NASA training. I don't quite know what that means. But the upshot was that there were these two brainy, brilliant guys who had this vision of making their own rocket. So they worked and lived, I think, in this area, which I'm going to say it wrong. I'm going to try it once. Ref Chalion, I think it is, which is this sort of like remote island that's somehow connected to Copenhagen, but on the outskirts. So that's where they set up shop, and Madsen, whilst there, was responsible for creating and building a launch pad and booster rocket system.
You know, I said earlier that I didn't know this story and I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
Are you sure this isn't the precursor plot to a James Bond film? Because that's what it sort of sounds like at this point in time.
I'm pretty sure it's not. But yes, I would say it's more, I don't know, I'll sort of get onto that. But anyway, so it's important to sort of set the scene. Anyway, whilst he's there.
What year are we in now?
Now in 2008. He was born in
71, so it's relatively recent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So in 2008, that's where he set up Copenhagen Suborbitals.
So he rang Elon Musk and said,
it's a little bit.
Hey, yeah, it's
crazy
like
people do crazy things.
Crazy, brilliant people. Yeah.
Crazy, brilliant people. They really believe in themselves and their ideas, and they really
not like us dumb people who don't believe in ourselves and our ideas, and we don't go around accidentally killing people. Anyway.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Well, we haven't been caught for it. And also, Schmitty, in your case, it's probably not deliberately killing people.
Yeah. Not accidental.
Nothing accidental about it.
I'm brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, my God, I accidentally made soap out of this person.
No, I did that on purpose. Yeah.
Whoopsie daisy.
Hang on, what?
whilst he was working with Christian von Bengtson, which was his partner at Subaudibles, they have a falling out. And I cannot get to the bottom of the idea as to why that happened, but it was really final. And having seen him interviewed about that, he despised Christian and Copenhagen Suborbitals and Orbitals and what they did. So what he did was he went, the best way I can describe it, and I do mean this literally, is he went across the car park and set up his own business.
Oh, brilliant.
So they could see, it would be like across the road, across a bit of bitumen. Yeah.
I've got a bit of bigger rocket than you.
So he used to look across it. He could see the sign for the place, and he set up his own shop. So
it sounds like something Tom and Jerry would do.
Totally. It's very Tom and Jerry, the stuff that they're talking about. Because at the moment, remember, we're talking about rockets, and my story was about a submarine. So, at the moment, we're in sort of rocket territory or whatever else. Anyway, so that is some years later. So in June 2014, Madsen established RML Space Lab, which stands for Rocket Madsen Space Lab. Now, his goal...
Does it?
That's what he... Well, yes, in Danish. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Does it?
Well, it would actually. Rocket R-M.
We forgot the S bit.
Oh, the L bit is a bit confusing.
Labs.
Rocket Madsen Laboratories.
Oh, that's it. It's in Danish under the title Racket Madsen's Rumlatorium. I can't even say that. And it's just Danish translation.
Before when you said about, you called it the gate, he's part of a club?
Oh, yeah,
and he
yeah.
said
Dark.
racket. Dark. I actually, when he said racket, I thought you mispronounced it.
That's
by
racket
accident.
for rocket. R-A-K-E-T.
And I was like, he's part of it. Originally, I thought he was part of some kind of, badminton or something. And then you were like, it's a rocket club.
Sport.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Let me say it again. Racket Madsen. So Rocket Madsen. This is the word which is hysterical. Rum Laboratorium.
Wow.
I would love
it means laboratory. Okay, that just means laboratory.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's all Danish to Rocket Madsen Space Laboratory. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
We got there. But he has his company. He's got his little logo. And when I'm first introduced to him,
branding.
He does. They've got a logo on their little makeshift workshop. And as I said, he's literally distanced him so far from Suborbitals that he's across the other side of the car park. Literally.
Brilliant.
There's not even a road in between them. Like, it's just this bitumen bit of desolate area. They're there. Yeah.
When you say car park, only one car actually fits in between the two buildings, yeah? It's more of a lane.
To be fair, it's big enough that they can conduct some of their experiments in it. So it is a fair distance, but they are looking at each other. There's nothing else in between except, desolate bitumen. Right. Yeah, so he goes and sets up his own company. And in doing so, that's when I think things start to, I guess his profile starts to build, and he starts to, he's a guest speaker. People are interested in what he's doing and what his vision is. And it's at this point that I'm going to introduce the Aussie filmmaker, Emma Sullivan. So Emma Sullivan is actually the...
Are you sure this is a real story?
It is.
No, it's not.
It could be Austin Powers, couldn't it?
Or James Bond. When do they come into it?
Oh, it's all shits and giggles at this point. Trust me, it is ridiculous at this point. And so,
who plays Emma Sullivan?
Probably Kate Blanchett. I think I'd have her somebody like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Young Kate Blanchett or Kate Blanchett?
Young. Not young. Like 40.
30s?
40 maybe.
All right, cool. Yep. Okay.
So Emma Sullivan
Ugly
from Sydney
Kate Blanchett
could be
hot Kate Blanchett. Which Kate Blanchett? Because she can be all sorts of things.
Serious
Kate, right.
Blanchett.
She's incredible. She's got range.
Serious, intelligent, informed. Anyway, Emma Sullivan.
Does she have a prosthetic nose?
Smart hot.
No.
Smart hot.
Yes. I think Emma Sullivan's smart hot.
But no prosthetic nose. Okay, I think I've got it now too.
It's not the hours.
No, that's Nicole Kidman.
I know.
Anyway,
I know. Yeah.
right.
Just the disguise factor.
So in Sydney, I guess I think that's where she was based. She's certainly Australian, but I feel like she is in Sydney, and she sees a speech that Peter Madsen does as a TED Talk. Correct. TED Talk. You got it in one.
Oh, goodness me.
Right.
And he's talking about, his personal
enormous
rocket. His personal rocket that he wants to make.
Would you like to see my big rocket? Yeah.
It's so Austin Powers.
And
well, Miss Normus, should we shag now or shag later?
She sees him and she sends him a letter and basically says, hey, I'm a filmmaker in Australia and I'm really interested in seeing what you're about and what you do. And he sends her a letter back which basically says, oh, it's crazy hijinks here. Get yourself over here, you know, it's... Oh,
I'm sorry, it basically says it's crazy hijinks here.
Well, you know, it's him being a little bit creative and a little bit sort of like...
Can you do a Danish
you have no
accent?
idea. No.
I can't even think.
I probably could have at one time, but I can't remember.
Is it something along the lines of, hurdy-gurdy, muffin man? Is that Danish?
That's Swedish.
No.
That's Swedish.
Swedish, okay.
Yeah. So Emma Sullivan reaches out to him. He comes back and says, oh, absolutely. You won't believe how amazing things are here. Please come and have a look.
Make
so
movie with me.
Well, that's kind of what happens. So Emma Sullivan sets off to Copenhagen and to the island or the part of land that I can't say, Rafshagen or whatever it is, and she starts filming him. So she's filming him because he is not only interested and creating a rocket, he's also built his own submarine. Now, how has a man done that? Well, he's got lots of help. And basically young people, predominantly young people, who have backgrounds in engineering, welding, science, maths, they want to work with him. So a lot of them were Danish, but there were some that were foreign as well. They basically come to this area in Copenhagen and they are just this formidable team of young, enthusiastic inventors. He has all of these young, enthusiastic, brilliant inventors who surround him. And I have to say, in the footage that I've seen, they're quite sycophantic. Everybody,
I was going to ask, are they sycophants? Yeah,
they totally are. But also, he's creating this situation where he is the king. He's got this profile. They're just so honoured to be around this brilliance and, you know, working with this guy who they think is, you know, going to be changing the world. So
it's some Elon Musk, Richard Branson.
Yeah.
And there are loads of them. Don't get me wrong, having met Richard Branson a couple of times, he's a lovely man. And I don't think he actually invites it. But people can't help themselves but want to suck up to people like that, you know? It's a cult of celebrity in the brainiac sense.
As opposed to the Kim Kardashian sense.
Yes. This is, I said before, she was smart sexy or smart hot. This is smart celebrity. Yeah.
Yeah. He's definitely got a profile, and the two things are, you know, obviously there's his rocket work that he's done. This is me simplifying it hugely. And then there's submarine work.
Thank you. Because I would get confused if it was too scientific.
I need to keep it really simple because in the documentary, they sometimes switch between working on things that are related to the submarine and things related to the rocket. But I think somehow, and this is embarrassing, I still don't understand. I think they're both connected.
It all sounds the same.
Yes, I think the submarine somehow is, you know, they talk about launch, like there's a launch pad and there's a rocket, then there's a sub. And I'm like, oh, what are we chopping and changing? Are they all connected? Don't know.
So in the Austin Powers movie of it,
yes.
The submarine actually has the ability to transform into a rocket. And I think that's why we're getting confused here because it's the same thing. Yeah.
They're both propelled by some form of combustion and they're both cylindrical. It's just one goes underwater and one goes out into space.
I think you've nailed it, Schmidt.
The submarine that we need to talk about
also, you put people in them sometimes and they both move.
Okay. There you go. They are basically the same thing. They just travel through different matter.
The similarities are endless.
What was the really smart man's name who died recently? You know.
Yes, I do know. I know exactly who you mean.
Oh, God, how come we know?
Except I don't know his name. Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking.
I was thinking Dawkins, yeah. That's right. I am the Stephen Hawkings of this podcast. I just totally nailed the different, like the subs and whatever. Yeah.
Are they both piloted by Dr. Evil? Is that also a similarity, or is that only in the movie?
Schmitty.
Sorry.
So
I know.
Rude.
Too soon? Too soon?
So
sorry. You made me do accents in the last episode. I was just doing an accent.
Fair enough.
A mimic. You're welcome.
So I don't know how we got to 3. Excuse me, what are you people up to?
We're being naughty.
I know.
We're going to get to something really awful's about
Something
to come,
really
right?
awful is going to happen. Get it
Exactly.
out. Get it out.
Schmitty being you're going straight to the funny farm, Schmitty.
So Madsen had built 3 submarines in his time, and the one that we're going to concentrate on is the UC-3, the Nautilus. And the Nautilus was...
Oh, no.
That's the name of it. It was a privately built midget submarine.
And you know where the name came from.
Still pretty big.
It really is Austin Powers. Mini me's in it.
You know that's a Journey to the Bottom of the Earth reference.
Yes,
Who wrote that?
absolutely.
The Nautilus.
Yeah.
Captain blah blah.
Nemo.
Nemo, that's it. Captain Nemo.
Captain Nemo,
in
Jules
the
Verne.
Nautilus.
That's who you're trying to think of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Got it.
So he'd christened it, that's right, he'd christened it Nautilus after the fictional submarine in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
There we go, yeah.
Jules Verne's anti-hero, Captain Nemo, was a figure who lived outside social laws. Say the 7 seas in search of total freedom. Unlike Nemo, Madsen had stayed close to home in Denmark. What are you, pet, doing? You're bright red, Schmitty.
I'm holding in my giggle.
How hot is it in there now?
Sorry, you know how I
they've
feel,
lost
Swanny,
it.
when you and Clarky
I know,
do this
I
and
know,
you
and
cry
I can't
and
stop.
laugh for 20 minutes.
Stop disrupting the story.
We're not up to the funny bit yet.
Sorry. So wrong. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
So we've got the Nautilus, and we're with Emma Sullivan, and she's arrived. She's shooting lots and lots of footage. She's interviewing Peter Madsen, but she's also interviewing the team of people that work for him, with him. When she arrives, she finds out that he's this anti-establishment celebrity in Denmark. And she said, you get this sense that he was doing something different. It was something bigger. It was something worth being a part of. And so everyone was quite excited. And there's lots and lots of footage. So she's obviously planning on making a film about the submarine. But, he'd say to her sometimes, it's not just about the submarine, it's also about the rocket. People won't know if I'm going up or I'm going down. I'm everything.
I
amazing.
really hope they do know the difference between him going up or down, though, in a rocket.
I'd like to think that's obvious.
Sorry, go on.
He also had other filmmakers who had done some work with him, but there was one film a documentary that was released, and I just like the name of it. It's not that funny, but I thought it was quite funny. It was called Amateurs in Space. Really sort of tickled my
It's not as good
fancy.
as Pigs in Space.
And it was more about his relationship with the guy from Copenhagen Super Orbital.
the one he fell out with.
Yeah. Apparently the documentary actually, and I've not been able to see it, but it's about how their relationship falls apart. And it's interesting because in so much of the early stuff that when he's being interviewed by Emma, he says to her at the outset, I'm going to tell you what happened and I'll tell you once and I'll
he
never
never
talk
does.
about it again. No, he does. But it doesn't really give you a whole lot except that he feels like he did all the work over at Submariner. Everything was a result of his genius, his vision, and they then took the ideas and said that was theirs. And he's, adamant that's not the case. So
it's
fuck you, I'm going to do it
Apple-
myself.
Apple Jobs type scenario.
Maybe. I don't know. But the idea
No,
that he's just
Steve
across the
Jobs-
car park sticking it to them just makes me laugh at it. There's such close proximity.
I know it's not a complete parallel, but Steve Jobs worked for Apple in the outset, right? And then they sort of went broke and they'd sacked him because he was a mad genius. And they brought him back, and I think he launched the iPod and iPod.
Oh, yeah.
iPhone.
Yeah. And it revolutionised
iPod,
Apple.
correct.
And so, but there was that whole thinking from his perspective of he was the genius who made Apple, and how dare they sack him?
But it was sort of and a lot of this is covered in The Deep. So much of the footage is they'll conduct an experiment. One of the experiments is, and I won't know how to describe it correctly, but they were trying to work out if they'd launched the rocket, if they could handle the force. So I think is it something that goes round and round.
May the force
If they could use the force.
So he's strapped into this seat, and they have a rocket launch at the back of it, and then they spin him around. Anyway, then he survives.
Do you mean
It's
like
fine.
G-forces?
Correct, that kind of thing. And then after, everyone's patting them on the back. They've all got their, matching I call them jumpsuits, but that's what we call it.
Uniforms.
Branded, but it's like an overalls kind of thing. They're really into it, but they're all, they've found their people, and that's quite nice about it. Like they're all so excited about what they're working on. And I would, when they would interview the young people, I'd think they really sounded passionate and just so happy to be doing the work with him. Whereas every time they interviewed him, I remember thinking,
So they found the job they love.
Yeah, totally. And I would assume they're not getting paid for it, but I don't know how they survive. A lot of them probably lived at the workshop and lived nearby.
Sorry, they were being paid.
I don't know.
These are volunteer
Well, a lot of
workers.
them are volunteers. I don't know who would have been being paid. Everyone was like interns and volunteers, right? So
Because he's got no cash.
not really. I mean, maybe they probably had enough to get by. But if you're describing everybody as an intern or a volunteer, I'm assuming that there's not much. There's no real pay structure, whatever else. No, I wouldn't have thought so.
You get experience. It's like being a musician.
Absolutely. It's what when these big companies and you get in at the beginning and you get a share of what happens later. But I'm sure that was the case. So as a result of there being so much interest in him, in March 2017, a freelance journalist named Kim Wall learned about the rival rocket makers, which I just think is so cute.
The rival rocket
makers across the car park from each other. It sounds like a kid's story, doesn't it, really? Rival rocket markets. What happened was she was in Ref Chalion, which is this area, which was, artists and whatever else. And the reason she was there was she was visiting her partner, Ole Stober, who was a Danish designer. So he lived there. He just moved there, actually. And they were walking around one afternoon and she walked past the buildings of the old shipyard. So she could see Rocket Workshop 1 and Rocket Workshop 2. What are the chances of 2 rocket workshops of it? And that's how the interest for her sort of came to be.
I don't know a lot about municipalities in Copenhagen, but surely testing rockets in a downtown suburban
It wasn't
area.
downtown suburban. Don't think that. Okay. Think more like on the edge. Remember, so much this area is like on water,
right out of nowhere.
Yeah,
because it'd have to be. For
the council. It's not too far. You in your mind. If I say this, it will ring a bell. There is a bridge that goes from Denmark to Sweden, and it's very low, and it's all low level water, very grey, covered in
estuary,
and it's not far from there. It's sort of like this outpost. Think of that. It's still part of Copenhagen, but it was the shipyards originally. So imagine it's on a point which is easy access from the sea, I'd guess.
Yeah, I know.
But now derelict.
I'm picturing things like Port Melbourne, and there's no way you could build a rocket in Port Melbourne.
Well, you might if you think about it. Like it wasn't. They weren't massive. Remember, then they'd go onto some water and they'd be shooting things off out of the water and stuff. A lot of it was water based.
So they're only little rockets. No people were in them.
Midget submarines.
They were getting to that point. Midget submarines.
Well, that's a submarine. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Ms. Wall's there.
So she's the Swedish journalist who has made an approach to Peter Madsen and said, "I'm really interested in meeting you, coming to see what you're doing." Anyway, and I don't think he really gives her a lot at first because I think, to be honest, he's got other people calling. There's a lot going on. He's sort of a man in demand, I guess. Plus, he's working furiously to try and beat Copenhagen Suborbital to launch a rocket. So there's a race on, space race. So
USA and USSR.
Denmark, yeah. And in the documentary, a lot of it, you get this sense of, things are building. There's, anticipation, but things are starting to go wrong. And in Emma's talking to the volunteers and the interns, there are a couple that you can see really know what they're talking about. And it comes down to like detail. And there's this one particular day where they're building the launch pad. The launch pad is a floating structure that they need to build sort of in a day. So they've got the components, but then it needs to be built and then go to float in the water to be ready to do some more testing. Anyway, he's pushing. And you can see the people who actually have the knowledge and the skills. It's not him, remember, he's the big ideas guy, really. They are very frustrated because they're like, that's not right. That's loose. That bolt's loose. This is right, whatever else. Anyway, so they get it in the water. It's already dark. He's furious because it hasn't been lighted up. And you can start to see this other side of his personality, which is...
It's not safe, though.
It's not so nice. It doesn't matter for him, right? It's just got to be done.
No, exactly. It's got to be done when I expect it to be done.
The doers, people who are like tension, this is why it's going to work versus fail, they are frustrated and they're, trying to get the work done. He's becoming less... People are not quite so happy anymore. And there's one person that said he must have had a driver. This older chap has got the overalls on. He says to him something like, he said, oh, thank you for driving to us. Maybe he was like a tugboat guy or something, he was taking it out. Oh, thank you. And he goes to say, is there going to be a problem with X? Because he's aware of something. And he just shuts him down. And I think that's where things were headed. It was all getting a little bit messy. By all accounts,
cost kind of thing.
It just felt like there was a heightened sense of, I don't know, I felt like he was losing control. And this was relation to the rocket launch. And that's sort of where the documentary that Emma Sullivan's doing, that's her interviewing him and what she's presenting starts to show it's not a stable sort of situation. Anyway, now we're going to jump forward a little bit, but not too far. And I'm going to take you to the day of the 10th of August in 2017. And I'm going to introduce you a little bit more to Kim. So Kim Wall was the Swedish journalist who had approached him for an interview. And to give you a bit of an idea about Kim, she was a brilliant journalist, although she hadn't been doing it for a terribly long time. But she was a superstar when it came to being at university and where she'd been accepted and then where she went to further her studies. So Kim was considered to be a formidable character and a really driven journalist. And she was born in 1987.
Smart hot?
Yes, but different.
Taylor Swift, I reckon.
Who's playing her? No. Someone, a brunette? Am I calling a brunette?
I think she might have like auburn hair. I can't quite tell.
Red.
It's sort of like maybe Isla Fisher, but I don't think Isla Fisher.
Julia Roberts in the Pelican Brief.
No, I'm not getting that vibe either. I don't know. She was born in 87 and grew up in a close-knit community in a small town not far from Denmark, in Trelleborg, southern Sweden. So it's just across the strait, probably near that bridge that I was referring to before. She studied international relations at the London School of Economics, which is no small feat in itself, I guess. And then she went on to gain a place at the rigorous master's program of Columbia University in New York, where they've described it as the Oxbridge of journalism. Within her cohort, she was top of the class, winning honours in her year. Isn't that fabulous? So she is a bright button.
She is a bright button.
When we meet her in the story, so we know she's made the approach to Peter Madsen, what's happening is she's actually on Ref Chalion with her partner, who is the Danish architect, and they're going to have a farewell party because they are leaving to go to Beijing to work and live.
Oh.
But on that very day,
very upwardly mobile.
yes,
aren't they?
well, they're looking for. She's always trying to find stories and leads. Apparently, she had travelled extensively. She'd been to Africa a number of times. She'd been to Cuba, so she'd been into lots of situations. Although she hadn't been reporting for many years, because remember she'd studied for quite a long time. But she'd certainly been in lots of dangerous situations. She liked to report on identity, gender, subcultures, and lots of social injustice or social justice themes. So she was a real worldly girl. Like, she cared about things. She was brilliant at finding a story, finding an angle, and presenting a different angle. And, was highly regarded by her peers, both academically and then later in the workforce. We find her on the 10th of August getting ready to go to her farewell party with Ola, her partner, and they've got friends coming together because a couple of days later they're moving to Beijing. And it's on that day that she receives a text from Peter Madsen saying, hey, if you want to come over and have a chat today, you can do that. I'm available. So she agrees. And the beauty of it is that she's actually not far away. I think it was a very short distance, the walk. So she walks over to have a meeting with him. And half an hour later, she goes back to see her partner and says, look, he's actually telling me he'll take me out in the submarine for a couple of hours. I know we've got our leaving party, but what do you think? And he says, and she said, do you want to come with me? You can come too. And he says,
couldn't think of anything worse. Okay.
Not on my top list, let me tell you. And he says, look, no, I won't go. It's not that I'm not interested. You go. I know you want the story, but we've got guests coming, or we're meeting people at a bar or whatever they were doing with our parties happening. So I'll go and meet them. You'll only be a couple of hours. You're not getting on the sub till 7. Come at 9, whatever else when you get back. We'll see you later. So that is the 10th of August, 2017. So very recently.
It's so recent.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's why I do. Do you remember the story, guys?
No.
I do. Okay. Kim Wall and Peter Madsen board the UC-3 the Nautilus. And off they go. And there are photos of them with the both, what's it called? It's not a manhole. What's it called, the top bit? The sticky out of it at the top?
Periscope?
No, that's the bit you look out with.
Yeah, that's the top bit.
No. She's talking about
It's like there's the bit that sits out. So if you see people looking out over the top of it, you can see them like leaving the harbour with, she's smiling out and here's the two of them. You can see them, and the sun's setting. It looks quite beautiful, really. And I have read somewhere that Ole could see her, and I don't know if it was with their friends, but they could actually see them departing. And off they go.
Oh, God. I can tell this is not going to be
This
good.
is where it gets really interesting. So Emma Sullivan, in real time, is with his entourage of volunteers and interns when they get news that there's a problem, that they haven't returned and that they haven't come back. That night at 11 o'clock, I don't think he'd heard, and the party finishes. He's a bit concerned. He goes home. There are no messages from her after a certain time. So at one point, Kim had sent him messages saying, I'm on my way, or, heading out, and stuff like that. And then there's sort of nothing.
Toot, toot, off we go.
Yeah, so he calls, I don't know if he calls the police or the Coast Guard first, but anyway, they all notified he's concerned about his girlfriend who's missing, and then, they wait the next day and nothing. Then at about 10 o'clock, I think it is, the submarine is spotted, but then within the next half hour, the submarine sinks.
So this submarine we're talking about, Is this the midget or is this a bigger one?
It's a midget, but a midget's not tiny. Like if you saw it,
the midget submarine we're talking about.
Let me find out how big it is. Oh, stop it. Just stop it.
No, because you were talking about the fin or the door.
You can see it with a naked eye.
The sail. You were talking about the fin or the sail, right?
It's not a sail. I don't know what it's called. What's it called?
It is. Americans call it the sail. It's
really.
It's the tower bit. You're talking about the tower bit, which the periscope comes out of. That when you talked about them, like a large submarine, you've seen pictures of people standing on top of them. This is smaller version, but obviously two people were visible on it, right? So it's not tiny.
No, it's not tiny.
It's not as midget as it sounds. When you talked about it being a midget submarine earlier, it made me think about those.
Yeah. But that's
But it made me think of like those tiny little two-person ones that people who go in deep sea exploration,
I know. It's
David
not like a little
Attenborough type little things. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, here we go, Schmitty.
That's what I was thinking of.
It weighed 40 tonne. It was 17.76.
Not a midget at all. It's a fat midget.
It was big. Well, it wasn't, but not by normal standards, but by the fact that they built one. It was 17.7, nearly 18 metres in length.
That's big enough.
Its beam was 2 metres. I don't know what that means. Maybe that's that thing.
Across the top.
No, okay.
No. Beam is across the
tonnage. Propulsion, it had a diesel engine, electric motor, and it could do 6 knots, and it could have 4 to 8 crew. So it was considerable. So when it was going out of the port, it was big.
Swanny, it's about the size of a canal boat, a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's not small. I mean, the technical term was midget, but I'm not using that to suggest that that's how little.
No, it's a midget by
comparison to
the crew. Sorry, to the Navy, yeah.
I feel like they should call them 600 small people. Submarines, not midget. It's a little bit politically incorrect.
The Nautilus is spotted, and this is important. So when it's first spotted, it is still afloat. And then within a very short period of time, whoever the witness was, the witness saw Peter Madsen. He was out the top of the submarine. Then he goes inside, and then it starts to sink, and then he gets out. So he's rescued. He gets out. He's rescued by a nearby motor vessel.
Did he forget to shut the door as he went back inside?
Something like that, yes. Well, I say something like that. So back at the workshop, word has arrived that he's been found and he's safe, and everyone's, crying and rejoicing, whatever else. And people saying, but where's Kim Wall? Kim Wall's partner has reported her missing, and they don't know where she is. And the word comes back that Peter Madsen has said, look, I dropped her off last night.
You liar.
No, he dropped her off.
I dropped her off last night.
When the submarine went down, he dropped her off for sure.
So he dropped her off. He was actually arrested immediately.
Good.
But there was no sign of Kim Wall. And at that point, the submarine was salvaged. They went and, is that what it's called when you go and bring it back up?
Yeah.
So From the outset, investigators determined that it had been a deliberate act. Now, remember, someone had actually seen him in it before he went down. Yeah, so he's sunk his own submarine.
So he didn't forget to shut the door at all.
No. So that's on the 11th of August. So he says, well, you know, I put her on dry land. Like, she was gone. I don't know. Could you imagine? Where does the submarine pull up? Just like, there you go, off you get. Anyway, that was his story. And it was quite interesting because you could see...
Like a water taxi. Could you imagine it?
And this was just a continuation of filming for Emma Sullivan about, you know, the submarine and the rocket launch and whatever else. So she's there filming going, oh, gosh, you know, what's happened? And then they're devastated because the submarine sunk. You know, it's them trying to come to grips with what they're hearing as they're hearing it in real time. So you're watching their first reactions. At first, they're so consumed about worrying about Peter and what's happened to Peter. Then they know Peter's safe. And then you start to see them not quite understand and question, well, where would Kim be and why has the submarine sunk? And, you know, they're clever people. So all of these questions really start coming up and you can see them grappling with it. So in terms of the documentary, the footage that she ends up getting is remarkable. It really is. You know, capturing something in real time, which is not just going back and reviewing, saying, oh, you know, when people are telling you about an event, it's happening. They're there and people are crying with relief and then they're starting to be concerned about other things and you start to see the whole thing start to unfold. That was the 11th of August. On the 21st of August, so sometime later, a cyclist finds Wall's torso. It has been washed up.
Jesus.
Oh.
Yeah. Her torso had 15 stab wounds, mostly in and around her vagina, and I can't even say that word. Oh, God. Mostly in and around her groin, and she had all this metal weights.
Vagina.
I know. It's just so
He weighed her
hardcore.
down. He stabbed her to death and weighed her down.
And
Why?
the idea being that she had been stabbed so many times so the gases would release, so the torso would not float.
She wouldn't float.
And she'd been her torso had been weighted down.
When you say torso, does that mean he dismembered her as well?
Yeah, we'll get to that. So at this point, his story has been that he dropped her off. His story then becomes, actually, what happened was she got hit in the head. The hatch hit her in the head and she had a fatal brain skull fracture.
And died.
So first of all, he says, first of all, he says, oh, actually what I did was I gave her at sea burial. And that's the first bit of information that gets back to, because the police releases, and you see the
Was she
stuff.
Muslim?
No.
Because that's the only religion I know, and Jews, who like to bury their dead very quickly.
Oh, yes.
I mean, literally, we're talking 15 minutes later, I thought I'd give her a sea burial.
That's very true.
What?
Is it more credible to stick to the I dropped her off story? I don't know what happened. Than to say that?
I wouldn't say it's credible. I would just say it's...
I think you got more... Like, I could...
Well, it sounds better than...
That's what I mean.
I thought I'd give her a
100%.
sea burial.
Yeah.
Sorry, Swanny, this is taking a very dark turn.
I know. So his story starts that I dropped her off. Actually, no, she accidentally got her head hit from the hatch and I gave her a sea burial. And now it becomes, well, she still accidentally hit her head, but yes, I did, maybe dismember her. Yeah, I did sort of cut her up. On the 6th of October, Swedish police...
Sorry, I don't understand why he's changing his story, because he's just implicating himself.
He's a liar.
Yeah, but his lies are getting him in deeper, not... Like, it's really interesting. It's an odd way to respond.
So on the 6th of October, Swedish police find 2 plastic bags, and in the 2 plastic bags are Kim Wall's head, her legs, her clothes, and a knife.
Fucking
oh, my God.
Christ almighty.
6 days later, on the 12th of October, they find a saw.
What?
Now, the saw had come from his workshop. And in footage that was taken by Emma Sullivan...
So it's premeditated.
Totally. So Emma Sullivan has footage where she's filming inside the workshop, maybe the day before or something like that, and they highlight it. And in the back corner, there's a light ring that shows, look, there's the saw. And then the day of he's missing and she's missing, whatever else, she's filming another one of the, volunteers, and it's gone. And it's that footage helped because that was that saw. So it was taken from his workshop.
Wow.
But the way you've told the story, he didn't know her. She just... walked past and
not quite.
said,
I don't know that they'd ever
good.
met before. He knew that she was interested. So that's quite right.
You're probably going to answer the question, but
I will.
This seems so odd.
It does, doesn't it?
It's really disturbing, is what it is.
Okay.
Oh, we're missing her arms. I'm sorry. I cannot believe how awful that sounds, that I did not.
Sorry, I thought we'd found them. Okay,
finally her arms were found. Again, I don't know. All in water, coming up from water, where everything's been weighed down with poles and metal. It's absolutely horrendous for some woman who's just going to do a job.
Yeah, who doesn't even know the bloke.
Yeah. And this is where he just changes his story constantly. So he changes his story again and says, oh, actually, it wasn't that she hit her head. It was the fact that she had, is it asphyxiation when it's like from poisonous gases inside the submarine?
Yeah, but he would have too, so that's a lot of old
But then, of course, there was nothing found in the post-mortem in her lungs. It said a post-mortem examination performed on Wall's head after it was found a month later found no sign of blunt force trauma and did not determine the cause of death. Madsen subsequently changed his story, admitting to dismembering Wall's body but continuing to deny intentionally killing her, saying that she may have died after poisonous exhaust gases entered the submarine while he was on deck. The post-mortem performed on her torso showed there were no signs of exhaust gases in her lungs. So he just lying.
How many times do you get to change a story?
Well, to what end? So on the 16th of January 2018, Madsen was charged with murder, indecent handling of a corpse, and sexual assault. The prosecution accused him of having tortured Wall before killing her by cutting her throat or strangling her. They were unable to determine.
What?
Good God.
So what becomes incredibly macabre about all of this was the fact that doing the research to find out what was going on in his life, what had he been up to, obviously they've gone and looked at his computer, talked to his friends, spoke to people about what had been going on. And the reality was that he'd had been approaching and talking to a number of women. Basically, there was not a person who had been chosen, we don't think. It was a case of there was a girl called Sarah who they have in the documentary, they try and cover her identity because, frankly, she adored him and they were friends. They spoke every day. He had been talking about taking her out in the submarine and she had some work to do. And she said, oh, you need to motivate me to get some work done. You know, what can you do? Scare me to get some work done. And he sent her these messages about, which she thought was a joke at the time, about a murdery kind of, I think it was a game he said it was, but it was, he was getting ready to do this.
So he was thinking about killing someone.
Absolutely. Emma Sullivan, the filmmaker, was another person.
Just whoever he could get on the sub.
It would have been on that day, at that time,
correct.
a woman.
But
there were a couple of different people who, you know, if it had been
Do you think
them,
it was just like, oh, I've done the submarine thing, I've done the rocket thing, I haven't done the murder thing. Maybe that's my next boundary that I have to cross.
Is that the next progression? Does that mean we should be worried about Elon Musk and Richard Branson?
Not Richard Branson. As I said, he doesn't have it in him. Elon Musk, I haven't met him, can't tell you.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. It's shocking. So in the days before the murder, Madsen invited a number of other women out in the submarine, including Emma Sullivan. And earlier on the 10th of August, the day that he went out with Kim Wall, Madsen had texted Sarah, who was the girl that I was talking about, a volunteer, to ask her out to sea. He had even jokingly said to her, this is what I had kind of messed up before, I have a murder plan ready, which is a great pleasure. Why? I don't know if someone said that to me. I don't know if I'd think, oh, that sounds like fun.
Is he just losing his mind?
Oh, yeah. There's a quote here from Sullivan, which was in the Sydney Morning Herald. It says, Sullivan knows it could so easily have been her in Wall's place. But I would need to group in every other woman who was around him too, she says. I think any female that was anywhere near him, at minimum, the month leading up to this terrible murder, was in some degree of danger.
Yeah.
It was all, and it's all there. Like, it is just so disturbing. What do you think they found on his computer? Police recovered videos on Madsen's computer of women being murdered and beheaded. Yeah. On the day, I don't have the exact words, on the 10th of August, in the day, the 3 words he had Googled were girl, agony, beheaded, I think.
What?
So it was so premeditated. He had all the tools that he took with him, the weights, the poles. There's a checklist that I can read you of things that he'd taken with him on the boat. It was horrendous, just horrendous.
Had he done anything, like was there a history or...
No, if you sort of delve into it, yes, he'd been to some fetish parties. There were some people that said he quite liked that. But, his wife he actually got
devastated, I'm sure.
We wouldn't know. There's no reference. She's totally gone into hiding and there was nothing of her being filmed or whatever else. So I can't imagine him having a normal relationship in the sense that their work was everything. So unless she was living there with them, I don't know how that would have worked either. And he was always flirting with every woman. Like you could just see it. It was, even the men too, I guess. It was just that kind of energy around him. Watching it unfold through Emma Sullivan's, documentary style filming, he's telling her everything, but you don't know what's going to happen, of course.
God.
But he talks a lot about people. We're all going to die. So you're either going to die a hero or a criminal. Like they're the two extremes. And you can see some of the people working for him going, I don't know about the criminal bit. What are you talking about? I thought we're here to build a rocket or a submarine or something. Oh gosh.
I thought we were just doing the normal male thing of extending our phalluses into either the ocean or space. Not killing someone.
I find the whole thing very bizarre.
It's shocking.
It's very disturbing because there's no sort of warning and it's so violent and so premeditated.
Yeah.
Such an escalation too.
Absolutely. He's just watching all this stuff and then preparing to do it himself.
Yeah.
And kind of knowing, I get this impression that he knew what was going to happen. I don't know. He just wanted to do it. Just wanted to know it first.
Do you think he knew he was going to be arrested, or did he think he'd have some protections from his?
Maybe. Maybe he thought he might have got away with it and said, I don't know what he would have said about her, but I just think he just was going to do it regardless. He just had to do it.
Oh, yeah. He had a predilection to do it and he was going to kill someone. I'm just interested in whether or not he thought that his little game plan of weighting down the body would mean that there was no evidence. And unfortunately...
he's obviously gone to a great deal of effort, right? It's not like he did just dump the body.
As much as he's a genius, it didn't work out. Yeah.
But I was just going to say, I think he thought he would get away with it to the point where whilst he might have been trying to hide the evidence, the fact that his response was, I dropped her off, you would almost go, what I have to do is drive the submarine to some point where I could drop her off and then go back out and finish it all off. So he hasn't really thought it through. I think probably because he just assumes he'll get away with it because he's so far up himself.
If you were going to try and get rid of a body off a submarine that you've surfaced a few times, obviously you would have a look at your maritime charts and look for where the nearest rip that takes, things out
obviously.
to sea. And that's where you would drop it, eh?
Hey, Swanny.
You wouldn't just be getting poles and shit and weighting things down. Oh, am I the only one who thinks like that? Anyway.
If I was to take someone out on the houseboat.
There's no rips at Lake Eldon. You're all safe. It's fine.
Clearly you've thought through that, though. So that's not the place you'd do it.
I found this article that was in Wired magazine, and the journalist who wrote the article was friends with Kim, they'd studied together. So she made it really personal, and she has become friends with Kim's parents, and although they didn't even want to be interviewed for the article that she wrote, but there's now a scholarship fund at Columbia. There's a whole host of things that are done in Kim's name, thank goodness, because she just had the most incredible reputation as a journalist, as a human, and it's just beggars belief what she's been through. It's horrendous. There was a dramatisation, I think, that was released maybe on HBO or something in the US, and they don't mention him. They don't talk about Peter Madsen at all. The idea being not giving him any airtime, I guess. And Emma Sullivan says, look, for me, it's about showing you. Well, she had all of it, you're right. She didn't go to make a documentary about a psychopath. She just accidentally made, had all this footage about a psychopath. Yeah. And it's too good not to watch, because you watch it and you just go, oh, my God. And for me, I never warmed to him. I didn't like him from the start. I mean, I knew that he'd been someone before I started watching it, of course. But there was no time in the early stage where I thought, I could have really warmed to that guy. I would have thought, fucking hell, you all think he's, God. You've all got that kind of thing going on. But she wrote to Madsen in prison before he'd gone to trial. I'm going to just read what she had written. I wrote Madsen 2 letters at Vestry Prison in Copenhagen, where he was being held before trial. I FedExed the first and dropped off the second in a mailbox near the jail. I told him who I was, who Kim had been, my sadness over losing her, and my wish that he would tell me what happened. One afternoon in January, months after I'd returned to New York, I went to pick up my mail and found an envelope with no return address. It was postmarked from Denmark on December 6, 2017. But that didn't register until after I'd opened it and scanned the neat, handwritten pages. It was only when I got to the word submarine that I realised Madsen had written to me from his detention cell. I remember telling myself to keep breathing as I tried to fold the pages back into the envelope. I did not succeed. The envelope was small and thin and ripped in my hands. When I finally forced myself to look at the letters, there were 3 dated in September and November. I was struck by their terrifying banality. He spoke plainly about the boredom of prison. He had few visitors and few pastimes besides writing. He described seeing Terminator 2 in prison and identifying with the character played by Linda Hamilton. He explained that he had access to a paper and pencil and what he didn't have access to, nearly everything else. He also wrote about Kim. He wrote that he thought about Kim every day and that he could, quote, feel her spirit somehow. There was a disturbing intimacy to his words, as if he were writing to an old friend. He flattered me, my writing style, and invited me to visit. He asked me, what are you? An explainer trying to understand, a terminator sent to terminate me? Without exception, whatever you are welcome. I am all yours.
You disgusting maggot.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's quite gross.
It's really alarming. So anyway, the trial occurred in 2018, I think from March to April, and he was found guilty on all 3 charges because there was a concern that they were not going to get him on murder. And that's why, because they had no proof that he had murdered her, I don't think, because yes, he definitely dismembered her. Yes, he'd said that. And they were concerned that they would only get him on that and the handling of a corpse and sexual assault. But through Emma's footage, and they convinced this girl Sarah to come forward where it had all of the the text about the murder plan and whatever else. It all helped, and he was found guilty. So murder, indecent handling of a corpse, and sexual assault, and his sentence is life imprisonment. So he is in prison, and hopefully that's where he'll remain. He was taken to hospital at one point because he'd been attacked by another inmate, and he'd actually escaped in 2020 for a short period of time, where he had threatened prison officer with what was a makeshift gun, and he said he had a bomb on, a suicide bomb vest or whatever else, and he was found a couple of 100 metres outside, but
got that far.
Put back in. But he has been described as, under psychiatric evaluation of Madsen, he was described as a narcissistic psychopath, lacking in empathy, but not psychotic or delusional. At the end of the documentary, this is so freaky. At some point during the year where Emma had been filming him, he reflects on the nature of psychopaths. Now, in the conversation, she's not having a conversation with him at the time about psychopaths. They're talking about something else that's kind of finished, and he brings it up. And he says, psychopathic people are often very charismatic. They are excellent speakers. They are convincing. They are having illusions of grandeur and have no regard for anyone else. Does the psychopath know that he's a psychopath? He asked rhetorically, gesturing towards himself. I'm not sure.
Well, I am. I think he knew he was a psycho. Yeah, path.
Wow. So that was a little bit of a project where I really sort of didn't know about something and kind of wanted to. And I found it incredibly disturbing once I really got to what he did to her and how premeditated it was and the stuff he'd been watching. And he just wanted to really hurt a woman so badly and torture them and murder them.
Do you think it stems from the fact that his mother rejected him when he was a child?
I don't know.
Because I wondered at the very beginning when he
my
said
mother rejected me as a child and moved me out and adopted me.
No, but you had another mother. No, but you had another mother, right? He had no mother. His father took him. His older father, who probably didn't give him any of the nurturing of a mother.
Correct. I think you're right.
And I wonder about that because not that I'm being all Freudian and weird, but I was interested when he said she kept her children from her first marriage, but she let him go off with the dad. And I thought, I kind of feel like we're going to go a woman-hating crime here.
Yeah.
And,
let's be honest, most of them are women-hating crimes, aren't they?
Clarky, what do you think in terms of this nasty little maggot who needs a good squashing?
It's quite hard to ascertain the magnitude of it because, we're talking about all these incredible things he's doing with his rockets and submarines and whatnot. And then all of a sudden he's gone to something so violent, so premeditated, so horrible to someone who just has there's nothing in it from her point of view, nothing that she's done that would do it. It's such an opportunistic horror story kind of thing. And I kind of think about what she would have felt when she's going, I'm going to go on this submarine and have an amazing opportunity and get a great story and blah, blah, blah. And then going, what the fuck, mate? How did we get to this? So, it's really one of those stories of terror kind of thing, what would have gone through her head. And
her parents were saying how amazing not amazing, that's totally not the right word, how horrendous that for a young woman who travelled to the most dangerous places or many dangerous places around the world, that she ended up, coming to such a horrendous end in a home, not her hometown, but where somewhere she felt really safe. And
like I think of, people who love swimming in the ocean or whatever, and there's that whole thing of if they get attacked by a shark, go, well, I was in their habitat, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's not victim blaming, but, I was doing what I love and I know that there's risks with that. And I think in the war-torn country, you kind of go, I was doing it and I know there's risks.
I'm doing a job and there's a risk. But I don't expect to be viciously murdered by some man I'm on a sub with.
And the fact...
Raped maybe, but not viciously murdered.
The fact that he had no desire to even try to hide it, everyone knew not everyone, but, it was obvious where she was going.
He was alluding to it.
Yes.
Well, but what I'm saying is that he invited her.
That's right. And she told her Peter.
It's not like that's something that, it was part of her normal routine. It was obvious that he was going to be the one that everyone expected her to be with, and he still did it. He's just so far up himself that he thinks he'll get away with whatever he does, I think.
Yeah.
So,
or knows he'll get caught but wants to do it so badly he'll take that anyway. Yeah, but I just got to do that. That's what I've got to do.
I think he could have done
on my
that
bucket list.
in another way. That's kind of where you get someone jogging at night or something. You don't send them an invite to say, hey, do you want to come to this? Because everyone will know straight away. He
wasn't trying to hide it.
That's what I'm saying.
He didn't give a shit.
No, that's what I'm saying. He's so far. He just thinks that he's better than everyone and he will be able to do it and get away with it.
I don't work in the world's boundaries. I've been a boundary breaker all my life. I've been shooting rockets. I'm special and I'm fine. But I don't even think he thought he wouldn't end up in jail. He just was like, I don't care. I'm going to cross this boundary now. This excites me.
This is what I'm doing now. This is my next invention exactly.
I don't think he cared about that. I think he cared more about I'm going to experience what I want to experience.
But that's what I mean. But he was also then willing to go, I'll die a hero or a criminal. And so this will now push me into dying a criminal, but I'm going to do it anyway because I think that from him, he was comfortable with that.
So what are we going to do to him? And you know what? I've just made up my mind because I've been sitting here thinking about how to punish this mofo, right? And because everything about this story, from the time we stopped laughing, and it was funny until then.
Yeah, it was.
And then it got real serious real quick. Because I thought it was going to be like an accidental drowning, he was negligent.
Yeah.
I didn't expect a violent murder.
Premeditated too.
Premeditated, dismemberment. I was like, vagina stabbing. I didn't expect any of that, right? I really did think he forgot to close the hatch and that was where we were going to end with that. So he's a pig. He's a total pig. It's the kind of person that when you meet them, you kind of want to punch them in the face but because you're not a narcissistic psychopath, you don't, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think because he's such a pig, I'm going to put him on a spit.
Ooh.
I'm going to, season him up a bit, and I'm going to turn him slowly over a fire.
Oh.
Not till he dies, just till he's really badly burnt. Then we'll take him off, a bit like the keel hauling. We'll wait till he gets his pain threshold back and he's healed up a bit, and he goes back on the spit.
Like a kebab.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like a kebab, but without...
Oh, just shave off a bit of the...
Shave off a bit of it, yeah, maybe. Sometimes I think, we probably toe a line where we do the kind of eye for an eye sometimes, a head for a head, arms for an arm, legs for a leg. But in this case, I think you're right, Swanny. I think just a couple of layers of skin at a time. A very, very slow and torturous
and a potato peeler. So as he
individual.
goes around, it just, like when you try to skin an apple and do it in one total go.
Or when you accidentally shave yourself, or like when you're peeling a potato and you accidentally peel it yourself.
Go too far.
Yeah.
Just that layer, though. Just that layer.
Yeah.
But let him heal up so that it's consistent. I cannot even begin to imagine her last moments.
Yeah, that's the bit that I kind of go.
I know, right?
And as you were telling the story and as I was looking at her, I don't generally get terribly emotional in these ones, but I really feel for this one.
It's terrifying.
Is so upsetting.
Yeah.
And a couple of times while you're talking, I've had to kind of, pull back and not get emotionally upset. This is so awful. And I can almost imagine, Carla and I, in Europe, met weird people like this. Like, I could imagine it could have been us. Like, this is... anyone could have been in this situation.
Anybody.
And so to suffer such a terrifying and vicious and brutal and violent death for no reason whatsoever, other than to satisfy the probably sexual deviance of this awful individual, I feel perfectly justified by putting him on a spit, putting a peeler on him, and making that mofo suffer. And that is my sentence.
Nice. Game on.
Well done.
The thing about it for me is that terror that I feel that Kim would have
It's so disturbing, isn't it?
Horrible. Like when there's no way out, there's nowhere to go.
And I just was not aware of that, Clarkie. When I heard about the story, as I said, it was in the background. I knew it was a submarine. I knew it was a journalist. I thought it was a missing person kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when I really started to look into it, and then I got to this point where it's like, holy shit, it's like a horror movie, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
It takes you from being something, to going, this isn't real life. This is a kind of TV program that somebody's made up as something to terrify people.
Yeah,
it's awful, right?
Yeah.
Ugh.
So what I was thinking is I want the punishment to give him some of that terror and prolonged. And so I was thinking you could put him in a little pen with about 10 other pens adjacent to it, and one end is he all by himself tied up defenseless, and at the very other end is a group of rabid pigs that are...
Pigs. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Gonna eat him.
And every 10 minutes, one of the gate opens and then they come a bit closer. And then they come a bit closer. And so over a period of time, these pigs come closer and closer and closer to him, to the point where at the very last one, they get let in and obviously
eat him
and rip him apart and all that sort of stuff that I think is okay for him. But it's not
and
that.
Then he wakes up in the morning and it starts again.
Does it again. It's not the death bit that is as important. It's the realization that he has got nowhere to go and he knows what's coming. And that's going to be prolonged, that feeling,
And that's why I think letting him wake up again
and do it again.
And know what's coming. So after the first time, you're like, yeah, pigs, whatever. Oh, God. Oh. But to know what you're going to experience, having felt all that pain, having felt that terror, coming back to it and experiencing it all again perpetually, it's the second round that's even that answers or goes to your point about issuing this man with the kind of terror and horror that I can't even. I'd like to think that he just snuck up behind her, cut her throat or something, and she was dead quickly. But I'm sure that's not what happened.
It's not that. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Not when you've gone to that effort we watched it.
So horrendous.
Yeah.
So horrendous.
Oh, yeah, it's just so disturbing. I find it so just like a horror movie. So in terms of my sentencing, this is where I really struggle because I cannot deal with that. I think that anti-hero, anti-establishment thing totally puts you at ease as well. It's like, oh, this guy is here for the good of everybody. He's going to come up with something wonderful. He's wacky, he's zany, he's creative, he's a psychopath. So there are two aspects that I would like to address.
Fine line. Yeah.
And one aspect that I don't think I can address. So the two things that I think I could look at in terms of things that I think would have some impact on him. One relating to his narcissism and the success of his previous company, Copenhagen Suborbital. Because when he spoke of that, he was so it was like,
angry,
if you felt that way, I guarantee you most of us it would be suffocating us, but we wouldn't air that publicly. We would know that was giving too much of ourselves away. Do you know what I mean? But when he spoke, he had such venom, and I thought, oh, fuck, what's he going to do to them? That's what you actually thought. If you had looked at it in a sort of a chronological order, I was like, my God, that guy is going to kill you or do something to you guys or sabotage. Like it felt like he would have to come up with a plan to make them not exist. So I would love to see them succeed, but their success has to be with he cannot exist. It's like he was never there. Because remember, he thinks everything that he ever did.
He thinks he made it happen for them.
So even if they were successful, he'd be like, well, that's because of me. So there has to be them being able to be successful with him never having he could never be mentioned, existed, be part of it, whatever else. But he has to be aware that they have been the first people to be the first, self-manned rocket, that they did all the things that he wanted to achieve, because that would really fuck him off. So I'd be totally up for that. I appreciate it's not very macabre, but
it's
at a really deep level,
it
would really be a psychological nut punch. Thank you. And again, it plays into the same thing with this idea that the way he enjoyed the notoriety and these people being sycophants, whatever else, I'd love to see that this idea of him being nobody, like nothing. And I suspect that he'd be the person who's sitting in his cell. It wouldn't matter what we do to him. He would know that people are thinking about him or talking about him. He's infamous. And that would be kind of enough for him in certain ways, that at least he's on somebody's mind. He needs to be on nobody's mind, dead without it. There's just no story here. There just needs to be nothing, so that he is. That people that he'd never existed, that people have no idea he was. He's nobody on any level. There is no memory. It's not like he is no longer somebody. He never was anywhere. No one's ever aware who you are. Everyone's been whitewashed their brains. We've never heard of this guy. Irrelevant. But he's
wiped from human memory.
He's still around to see everybody else's successes, and everybody else go on to wonderful, wonderful things. Kim Wall becomes, a Nobel Prize-winning journalist. Yeah. Not that it would really have any impact on him, but just so that he never fucking existed. Excuse my French. He's just, oh God, what he did to that woman, I can't try and match that. It's just not my thing. But he is bad to the bone. Yeah.
I'm happy with he never existed. No one knows who he is, but he lives in a world where he knew what he could have been and just wasn't.
Yeah.
And he can just rot in his own nasty little maggoty.
And with no one aware of him, nobody aware of him at all. He can't contact anybody. No one can contact him. No one knows who he is. No one ever did. It's like totally irrelevant.
All right. Fair enough. I'll pay that.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
All right. Well, as you said at the beginning, this is pretty dark. Clarky and I were just talking about how we had lots of laughs until that escalated real quick and did not go in the direction either of us expected. So
it was a psychological nut punch, as you would say, Shitty.
For all of us, for all of us. So well done, Swanny. That was a good one in a horrible way. I've got nothing else to say but miss you already.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao, ciao. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from pixabay.com.